Okay, this is straight out of your textbook from yesterday. Arc sine of 5 pi over 3. The very first thing I want you to do is I want you to say, okay, 5 pi over 3 is not, I have to look at this arc sine, right? That arc sine means I have to go where arc sine is capable of, which is going to be negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, correct? 5 pi over 3 is actually in quadrant 4. Do we all understand that? Yes or no? So if I go ahead and I take 5 pi over 3 and I subtract 6 pi over 3 from that, that gives me negative pi over 3, which just happens to be the same angle. Can we see that, yes or no? And negative pi over 3 is in that vicinity, okay? So what you're actually doing is the arc sine of the sine of negative pi over 3. Now, these two things cancel out, and you're going to get an angle of negative pi over 3. Now, if your brain did not like that, if your brain gets really confused on that, a really good way to do that, are you ready? I'm going to clear this out. Can I clear the page? Another easy way to do it is to say, what is the sine at 5 pi over 3? Well, we already know 5 pi over 3 is right here, and that corresponds with 1/2 negative square root of 3 over 2. What is that? What's the sine value at 5 pi over 3? So the arc sine of negative square root of 3 over 2. All right, so I just substituted in what the sine value at 5 pi over 3 was. Now, I need to go to the next concept, which is the arc sine of negative square root of 3 over 2. Well, if I am negative square root of 3 over 2, and I'm a sine value, sine goes from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, positive, 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 negative. That means I am in quadrant 4. Do we all understand that? Yes? Which we already knew that, because that's what 5 pi over 3 is. Okay? Well, the hands of the clock tell me 1/2 square root of 3 over 2 corresponds with a pi over 3 angle. That is your reference angle. Anytime you have your reference angle, all you have to do for the arc sine is simply put a negative in front of it, and it gives you your actual physical answer, and you're done immediately. So there's two ways you can do it. I don't care which way you do it, but your brain needs to be able to do it. If your brain understands this way better, go for it. Same exact concept.
So the first way you need to subtract 2 pi.
Yep.
And
And then they cancel out. Yep. Because arc sine and sine are inverses of each other, so they cancel out. But the only way they can cancel out is if you are in the actual range for your arc sine function, which is negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. 5 pi over 3 is not within that range. It's way further down on the number line. Okay. This right here, these do cancel out because the arc tan, negative 5, is going from negative infinity to infinity, so I know it's possible. And because it's possible, those simply cancel out, and your answer is negative 5. Easy peasy. Okay, this one right here, though, the cosine of the cosine inverse of pi. Well, if I'm going to do the inside first, I have to say, where is pi? Is pi between 1 and negative 1? Pi is 3.14. Is that a true statement? That is a false statement, so therefore there's no solution. You can't do it. Because pi does not fall within the domain of the arc cosine function. So that is why you can't do it. Remember, we kept checking them the entire time yesterday and said, hey, this works, this works, this works, we're good to go. Guess what? It does not work, so therefore I can't even do the problem. It's not a possibility. Do we all get that? Okay. Now, this is just like the notes that we didn't get to finish yesterday. This is the let you concept. Okay? Now, if you look at this one, you have the tangent of the arc cosine of 2/3. Tangent of the arc cosine. Those cannot possibly cancel out, can they? No. Because they're two different trig functions. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, we're going to let u equal the arc cosine of 2/3. Why? Because we're just going to make this something different. We're going to try to make this into something like that becomes the tangent of u then. Oh, okay. Makes it a lot easier. Okay? Now, how do I get rid of the arc cosine? We can see our cosine by taking the cosine of both sides. And guess what? 2/3 is in between -1 and 1, so therefore, I can go like this and I can cancel that out. And now I have the cosine of u is equal to 2/3. Totally legal. It's totally legal. Now, cosine, whenever I use the arc cosine, it goes from 0 to pi, plus plus, minus plus. This tells me that cosine is positive, correct?
Yes.
If cosine is positive, which of those two quadrants am I in? I have to be in quadrant 1. Do we all understand that, yes or no? Which means my cosine is positive, my sine is positive, and my tangent is positive. Do we all understand that? So if I go back to what I know about cosine, cosine is understood to be x over r. Yes? So that means I have x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared. So I have 2 squared plus y squared is equal to 3 squared. So y squared is equal to 9 minus 4. So that's going to be y is equal to plus or minus the square root of 5. So is y the square root of 5 or is y negative square root of 5? Why is it positive square root of 5? Because I am in quadrant 1, it cannot be negative, y must be positive. So now I want to know what tangent is. Tangent of u is understood to be your y value over your x value. What is your y value in this problem? Square root of 5. And then what is your x value?
2.
So therefore, that is your tangent. Do we understand that, yes or no? Yep. Okay. I'll do one more. You ready? Same exact concept. Yep. Is that better? Okay, so what do I do now? We're going to let u equal the arc sine of -3/5. Yes? How do I get rid of arc sine? You are going to mentally look at this number and say, is that number between -1 and 1? Yes, it is. So therefore, I'm going to take the sine of both sides. And they cancel because it's in my domain of my arc sine, which is between -1 and 1. So this cancels out. So I have the sine of u is equal to -3/5. Yes? Okay, now what is sine understood to be? This is understood to be your y over your r. Now, with that being said, arc sine goes from -pi/2 to pi/2. So I have plus plus and I have plus minus. What quadrant am I in? I have to be in quadrant 4. Do we all understand that? Yes or no? Because your sine is negative. And notice I'm going off of my arc sine range parts. Yes? My range values. Okay, so with that being said, I have x, we don't know, y is -3, and r is +5. So x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared. So this is x squared is equal to 5 squared plus, or I should say minus. Come on. Minus a -3 squared, yes. So x is equal to the square root of 25 minus 9. What is 25 minus 9? So I have plus 4 and I have x is equal to -4. So which one is it going to be?
4.
Plus or minus? You took the square root.
Yeah. Oh, I see how it is. Yeah, it's about like the minus -3.
I know. had two options. I have x being positive 4, x being negative 4. What is x going to be? And x is your x value. X is the first one, so it's positive. So therefore, it cannot be negative. It's positive. Do we all understand that? I'm in quadrant 4. Now, I need to do the cosine of u. The cosine of u is going to be your x value over your r. And what is x? Over your r? Done. Do we understand how to do the rest of that homework in that section? Okay, you should be fine on section 4.7. Okay, now I'm going to go straight into section 4.8. Okay? Because if you had to figure out here, this means you're going to do the cosine of u. You with me? Are you good now? I had to take the sine of u to find out what x was. And then I went and finished the problem that said to do the cosine of u. You with me? Because the cosine was on the outside. So that is the rest of 4.7.